Hello, in this video tutorial I will show you how to override the workflow actions button. This would enable you add a confirmation to every state before you transfer or transition to the next, as well as run some backend checks before you proceed with the transition. You could read more on the workflow action or the workflow itself from docs.erpnext.com, where you have a set of states and transition. I'll dive straight into development, and what we intend to do is to override this by adding a confirmation button. After that, we'll do a background confirmation for maybe you could add some logic before you proceed. We'll head straight into ERPNext or Frappe source code. Open the Frappe, go straight to the Frappe and head to public JS Frappe form workflow. You could copy the entire content or just copy this. Head back to the custom application. Within the public, I would like to create a folder with the name app_include_js. Within it, I'll paste this file. Yeah, here's the file. I don't know why this is expanded. With this file, I would get rid of several functionalities which we do not need. Get rid of this and this to the constructor. We only need the constructor, then we could make the override here. Have it as we are extending the workflow states. In here we have this sign workflow states. Okay, we override the workflow class and want to extend this function. After that, we assign the extension back to the variable recognized within Frappe. And next, this section here is where the workflow transition takes place. First thing I would like to do here is comment this block out, then print the transition and the document. Here I'm printing both the transition and the document to the screen. Next, we go straight to the hooks. App includes JS. Bring this down. Okay, and this would be app slash workflow. That will relate to app include slash workflow, same as app include, that is JS app include workflow.js. Now we can test the workflow because we have overwritten or extended the workflow class. We print the transition and the document. Once we execute that workflow, it will just console data to the browser. I have a listed doc type, just name, first name, last name, and time, and added this workflow to it. Transition from draft to pending. On pending, you can send for approval or reject. Action, send for approval. You see, there was no translation of this state. All we had was the transition, send for approval, and the current state is draft. You could look through, see the next state is pending. You see that as well in this first step of the process. You can see allow for self-approval is also there. Allow self-approval is one. Bring this down. Also check the document itself. The doc type is people, first name JP, you could see that, last name John, and the time. Now we could proceed to adding a confirmation, so that when we click on this button, it should not just proceed to the next state, but rather ask us for confirmation. I would use this frappe.confirm from Frappe frameworks documentation, import it straight into that application, or the source code, the front-end source code. Then we'll move this down. On confirmation, would like to execute this block. Then add a little spice. Rather than this proceed, we could just add a little spice to it. Call it bold, and a little class here would help, or could add d.action class equal to text primary. Replace this with a backtick, as well as the end string quotes with a backtick. Okay, we could test this out right now. Before, recall that the transition D comes from the set of transitions. For each, we have the transition button will show, or the action button. Now we have added a confirmation. We could add a comment here, say confirm action. We take that down here. Confirm action. Always remember to clear your browser cache before you proceed. Reload, or you could use this reload as well. So click this. Now you could see we have the confirmation, right? No, nothing happens, and yes, it should proceed, but we had commented that section out. That is why it did not proceed to the next state, and the next state is pending. You could see that here, pending. What next can we do? We could either decide to proceed to the next state or run some background logic before proceeding. I would add a little background logic for your understanding. Within this, I would create a directory API/version1. Within the version 1, I would add workflow.py. Then import Frappe. Down here, add a decorator at frappe.whitelist to allow the API call for authenticated user. Here will be defined before only transition. A doc string. Okay, check XYZ before we proceed to next states. Here I would we will access to objects. First import your JSON. First is the document. Would rather get rid of this, and this would be JSON Frappe dot local. I don't really need to be local. Form the doc. Then convert this to Frappe dict. Frappe dot underscore dict. This would enable us access both the document and the transition. That's it. Then you could write your logic. return first. We would return false in order not to proceed. Then within this code base, the front-end source code, I would add a little spice here. Copy this, add a comment here, check, or just add before transition. So add it here. Paste this comments. This should be an API call to test underscore app dot API dot v1 dot workflow dot before transition. That's correct. We pass the transition. That will be D. Then on return, we print the response. Okay, now what we should do here is if response else frappe dot message print. Oops, we could not proceed. This would be, we could use the same to, for clarity, add it or write it this way, then move this transition to that block. Move it to the true block. Good. What have we done here? We make an API call to the backend, then perform some logic, return the response. If the response is true, we proceed with the workflow. If it is false, we just say oops. At the same time, it would be nice to introduce this freeze outside of this block, take it up once we have clicked yes that would like to proceed. Freeze here and unfreeze at this section. Uninterested in this. Yeah, freeze here and unfreeze here. This would unfreeze the main transition. Since we're done, we could also check to confirm that we had the correct spelling for transition. Okay, and that should be all. We could print the doc as well as the transition. Good. We head back to the browser, clear the cache, reload, action, send for approval, no, action send for approval, yes, and we had a little issue. It says module object is not callable tests underscore app. We could check that to know what the problem is. Frappe dot underscore dict JSON. Yeah, so we had little issue just down here. It should be JSON.loads, as well as it should be JSON.loads. Okay, good. Oops, we could not proceed. Why? Because false was returned. How about we return true? You also observe that the back end or the background was locked, right? How about our logic return true? Then we proceed to the next workflow state. Send for approval, no. Send for approval, yes. Now you could see we proceed to pending, and within pending you would see that the next workflow state, could reload this to be sure. The action would execute both here and here. Click send for approval, you see that. Check the transition, where's the state pending, action send for approval, and next state is next approved. How about reject? See the same for reject. See that state pending, next, rejected. No, nothing happens. Reject, no, nothing happens. Yes, then we have moved to approved. Now this is how you can easily override the workflow action button. We could review the code. What we did first was to copy out, went straight into Frappe, Frappe public JS, Frappe form, then workflow. We grab the code base, went straight into our app. In public, created within JS app include.js, we add workflow. We made an extension to that class, only kind of made override to the show actions. Within that we added a confirm. Could clean this code up, remove all this console, confirm. From confirm we check the back end to make some logic. After that we get a response, clean this up. If the response is true, we proceed with the workflow. If it is false, we say okay, it's your choice what you want to be shown in this section. And after that we, based on this call, we added a little API call here. You can write your, as well, we did not also check the content of this print. We could see the content, scroll up, yeah, here is the content, first content for the transition, I believe, yeah, this transition, and this is the document. We printed the document and the transition. Here also the document and transition. This state is next state approved. And that's it for this. If you have question or you get a little confused about this, you want to know more about it, please drop comments below. I'll be glad to answer that. Thank you.